Hey, welcome back to the C-Space Studio. I'm your host, James Kotecki. We're at CES 2026, and we are here with UL Standards and Engagement's President and CEO, Jeff Marootian. Jeff, thanks for joining us here.
Thanks for having me, James.
Okay, UL Standards and Engagement. Tell us what that brand is and what it represents.
Well, UL Standards and Engagement has more than a century-old legacy of safety science and in making sure that products that are in our homes and that we're traveling with are safe. We work globally to collaborate to ensure that that's the case.
Yeah, so this is like, if I look at a light bulb, I remember staring at a light bulb once and seeing this little marker, this little UL symbol, right? That's part of the overall nature of this, right? That someone has vetted that when I plug this light bulb in, it's going to be safe, it's not going to explode or catch fire or anything else dangerous.
That's right, and our origin story is really based on the advent of electricity and all of the technologies that were enabled more than a century ago. And as we fast forward to today, we're living in a rechargeable society where people are carrying devices that are battery-based technologies.
Yeah.
So our focus now is on the safety of those types of devices.
So obviously CES is like the perfect place for you to be in conversation with everybody who's bringing current and new and almost on the cusp of coming out technological and electronic and battery-powered devices. But what specifically brings you to CES 2026? What's your message here today?
Our focus is and will continue to be around safety. We have a long history of work in building safety standards collaboratively with industry, and we're here talking about the importance of safety, not as an afterthought in product development, but really as a foundational element.
Yeah, so tell me more about what that looks like when it's done well. Can you take me through the process of how the safety conversation goes, integrated into the development process itself?
Sure. Well, breakthrough technologies are empowered to scale when safety leads. And what we know is we just released a report this week along with CTA talking specifically about digital health tools. But what we saw loud and clear from executives was that their priority is focused on safety at the outset, knowing that that helps build trust for consumers.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk about digital health, there's so many interesting ways to kind of track, but all these things are going on our bodies, right? Or they need to be on or near our bodies to be able to track these things. And we're in the C-Space Studio, we talk about it even just from a brand or marketing perspective. A few bad cases, even if it was a small minority of things going wrong, can probably just wreck a product that could otherwise be very useful.
Absolutely, and we think of ourselves as really the bridge between innovation and trust, and that's why we partner very closely with manufacturers, with technology developers, to ensure that their focus is on safety as well from the outset.
Tell me about trust. How do you build trust in a fractured, ever-evolving media landscape that is just more AI generated by the minute, and people often lack trust in institutions and media?
Well, absolutely. That's certainly something that we see in our own data. Especially, you touched on AI, as many folks here at CES are focused on AI as a component of all new technologies. And we know that as those technologies become more and more ubiquitous, people have questions, genuine questions about their safety. And so we're focused on ensuring that we're able to facilitate answers to those types of questions and provide people with honest information that has one perspective and one perspective only, and that's the perspective of safety.
Yeah. And so then what does that look like from a consumer perspective? How can they engage with what you're doing and answer some of those questions? I mean, they can see the brand, maybe the vetting, but then what else goes on there?
Sure. So we're focused on promoting the message of safety, but also on advocacy as well. And there are certain places where we have worked closely to ensure that products that are sold meet safety standards so that we know that there's a backing of safety. We also know that as more and more technologies are being sold online through online media and retailers, there's the threat of counterfeit devices as well. And so we're focused on providing consumers with as much information as possible to help inform their decisions.
Is it harder than ever to do what you're doing in a world where there are potentially bad actors out there who want to scam people and want to sell counterfeit things and maybe don't care as much about safety?
Well, as more and more companies, as more and more retailers are focused on safety, we're able to expand our partnerships. And that's one of the opportunities that we're consistently looking for, is ways to engage with more people both here in the US and abroad.
Got it. Tell me about mobility. Including autonomous vehicles, which is something I've talked about here with folks in the C-Space Studio for years. It always seems like we're maybe just a few years away from ubiquitous self-driving cars, but even here in Las Vegas, you can see autonomous vehicles driving around. So clearly there's advances that are being made there. Where is UL Standards and Engagement on those topics?
Sure, so autonomy is certainly a component of mobility, but it also relates to all of the products that are in our homes and really connected to a larger ecosystem. And so we're not just thinking about individual products, but we're thinking about a system and a system of systems of how those devices relate to our day-to-day. Specific to mobility and specific to e-mobility, we've done quite a bit of work to advocate for laws that ensure that products that are sold meet safety requirements, helping to ensure and build that trust for consumers knowing what they're buying is safe.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you brought up laws. I would love to talk about how you engage with governments and how you engage with industry and what that kind of balance looks like. Where do you see yourselves playing there? And is the goal ultimately to get to a legal structure at the end of the day, or is that not always necessary? I'm asking a very broad question here, but I think this is a really interesting topic.
Sure. So it largely depends on the issue and the topic. Our goal is to ensure that people have the opportunity to buy products that they know are certified to meet safety standards. Yeah. And so we work in many cases with states, with municipalities, with the federal government to ensure that that information is available and clear. In some cases, it does necessitate or require some type of legal or regulatory framework, but much of what we're doing is about spreading information about what safety standards are and how people can look for that type of information when they're purchasing products.
And industry is generally down to partner with you, sounds like. This is a very collaborative thing.
We rely heavily on industry partnerships.
Mm-hmm. And does that look like people from different competitors kind of actually putting aside their competitive differences for the moment and coming together, sitting in a room, real or virtual, and hammering out safety standards together between these different companies?
Well, we don't create our standards in a vacuum. We rely heavily on the technical expertise from folks in industry, academia, and a number of other areas as well. And so many times those are folks who have that technical depth and expertise coming together to create standards that everybody can live by.
Yeah. And I imagine it may also just be good for business too, just to have that standard in mind, because then you don't have to worry about interoperability as much, but I imagine just having some entity set the standard is just good from a business perspective, even setting aside the obvious safety concerns.
We hear from both executives and consumers alike that standards and safety create a sense of certainty, and that's something that benefits industry. It also benefits everyday users of technology.
Yeah, because it's not just like I'm going to read the little pamphlet and look at the instruction necessarily. It's literally down to the fact, if I see a plug in this shape, I just know no matter who made it, it's going to be able to fit into this thing, and I'm going to be able to power my device. That maybe is a basic example, but that sort of trust is maybe what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
So we talked about the advent of electricity with UL's origin story. We talked about battery operation, but all this is based on energy, and energy is transitioning now to more and more renewables. And obviously, there's continued questions around this here at here at CES and beyond. So, how is the energy transition affecting the work that you're doing?
Well, the energy transition is impacted by the work that we're doing in a number of ways. We know that battery technologies are powering much of that, everything from e-mobility to battery energy storage to data centers. And so we are working very collaboratively and closely to ensure that those elements are based on a sound safety science. And that helps ensure not only that people are interacting with technology safely, but it's also focused on some of the end use as well, things like battery recycling, for example. We can't get to that sustainable future without ensuring that our equipment is recycled properly.
Yeah. How much of your work is international and how much of it is on the national level?
We're an international organization. We focus quite a bit on collaboration, not just here in the US, but abroad as well.
And so what's your sense of the international, CES is an international show too. We see the world come together here to talk about technology in the future. But what's your sense in a world that some people might think is fragmented and people kind of wonder what the direction the world is going in sometimes? What's your sense of people's desire, from an industry perspective at least, to collaborate on these things cross-culturally, across borders and around the globe?
Well, there are no borders when it comes to safety. This is something that's a priority, not just here in the United States for manufacturers, but certainly for countries around the world. And so that's why we're focused on that type of collaboration.
Yeah. Are there other sustainability or innovation trends that you want to call out here that we're at CES 2026?
Well, I love being here because I get to learn about all of the different trends that exist, everything from the circularity piece that we talked about to how manufacturers are using AI technologies to reduce some of those carbon outputs, and so there's a lot of really exciting technology that's demonstrated here.
And so when you come to an event like this, do you feel mostly a sense of optimism? Do you ever look at something and you're like, ooh, that doesn't seem that safe, I'm the safety guy, I should be like looking at that a little bit more?
Well, I consider myself to be an optimist, but an optimist that worries a lot. And I think that there's a lot of technologies that are helping to offset some of that worry. But certainly our focus has to be consistently on safety. And so that's why we're here talking about that.
You can never lose that focus, right? Because the technology keeps evolving, and just when you think you've seen it all, something new shows up here at CES or beyond.
That's right.
Jeff Marootian, UL Standards and Engagement, thank you so much for joining us here in the C-Space studio.
Thanks, James.
And thank you so much. This is CES 2026. You're in the C-Space studio with me, James Kotecki. More coming up after this short break.